Good evening, Rishi. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to another episode of 103 FM's Men's Healthcare Power. I'm your host, Dennis Webster. If you're a regular listener to the show, welcome back. If you're tuning in for the first time, I hope you enjoy the hour. I would like to start off, as always, by reminding you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified healthcare provider if you have questions regarding a medical condition, and that you never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this radio program. Tonight, Rishi, my guest is Dr. Paul Crooks. Dr. Crooks has been on the show before, I believe on our episode about medical malpractice. He actually shared his own experience with his family member and the inadequate sort of care that he received, his family member received. Paul, welcome to the show. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good night. Thank you for having me.
Hi, good evening, Paul. Dr. Paul Crooks. A pleasure having you on board this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So Paul, now I sent you the recent research results on prostate cancer in Trinidad and Tobago within the Afro-Trinidadian and Afro-Indian, the Indo-Caribbean population. What do you think of that, the results, Paul?
Well, I would say it's not surprising based on some of the literature I've read before. There is a higher incidence than the Caucasian population in terms of prostate cancer, and a much greater risk is carried as well. So I'd say I'm not surprised by the information that you've shared.
What about the missing reports, Paul? I mean, is that concerning to you that we have 71 reports on biopsies that were done that no one can actually find or locate?
Oh yeah, that's an absolute problem. But to be honest with you, that's not the only time I've heard of that happening. To be honest, that's unfortunately way too common in Trinidad and Tobago.
It's a very common thing that happens locally. Is that what you're saying, Paul?
Yeah, quite common.
Wow. I think to me it's pretty disturbing, because when you think of men's health, I mean, some of the things that first come to mind, to me are, well, what systems are we using to assess men's health, number one, and what guidelines are we following to actually address problems that we discover when we're assessing men's health. When I did my training, we had a system, and I think in healthcare, all systems basically function the same way, which is assessment, planning, implementing, and evaluating. Would you agree?
Yeah.
With that, and I'm concerned about the systems we have here with regard to gathering information. I think it's time we get into the electronic age and start using electronic medical records. I think it's probably one way of maybe preventing loss of reports. I encourage people all the time to get copies of the reports of any testing that they have done, and this is one of the reasons why. One astonishing thing that I also noticed in this report was they looked for PSA data. Now, PSA is the first basically red light that a lot of doctors look for with regard to whether prostate cancer is present or not. Now, in this report here, they had 22 of them that were missing on patients that are actually diagnosed with prostate cancer. So the question that comes to mind, to me is, how did they come about, making a diagnosis if they didn't really have a PSA to begin with to prompt, that some sort of further investigation was required? You follow what I'm trying to say, Paul?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
PSA is the first thing. So
I cannot answer why. I cannot. Some of these things I cannot answer. I cannot guess as to why the diagnosis would have been made.
Right. Now, would you agree that all these things could be contributing factors? When you're considering medical malpractice and the quality of care that people receive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's for many specific disease entities, there are pathways you have to follow in order to arrive at diagnoses. In fact, there are times where if you skip a step, you endanger someone's life, as in the example here of prostate cancer, where actually taking a biopsy and moving towards the biopsy step may be riskier than the chance that the patient develops cancer at all.
Right.
And that was in one of the papers that I read, where there may be a lower risk of there being a cancerous tumor than the risk associated with infection from the biopsy.
Absolutely.
So it's critical that the steps are followed as outlined by the specialized body that creates these
guidelines for us to follow.
These guidelines, yeah.
Exactly, because I looked at, they said now they found 283 cases of cancer, but there were actually 263 cases where there was no cancer. Now that's a significant. I mean, they found as many cases without cancer almost as there were with cancer, and 196 of those cases were prostatitis. Now, and I've been sort of trying to to get this message across regularly on this show, and I use Dr. Rowley's situation as one of them, that every elevated PSA does not mean we should be sending people off to get biopsies done.
Absolutely,
we should be ruling out all the other possibilities, and this report clearly states that the two possibilities that culprits for increasing PSA levels, one being prostatitis and the second being non-cancerous enlargement, were recorded here as being the two other areas where elevated PSA levels were causing a problem.
Absolutely.
And not doing further investigation. Now, Paul, I know this is not really your area of expertise, but it really speaks to, putting systems in place so that people are basically managed properly.
Yes.
And our healthcare resources, especially biopsies, and the time required to do biopsies and things like that, that we use our resources, more efficiently. And one of the ways of doing that is by, making sure these people who are going for biopsies actually need them.
Correct.
Would you agree with that?
And again, I absolutely agree with that. And again, this is getting back to the point that going for the biopsy may be risky, and we're getting to an age where antimicrobial resistance is becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger problem. If you get an infection as a result, especially a hospital-acquired infection, as a result of a biopsy, you may not be able to treat it.
Exactly. The organisms are becoming more and more resistant to antibiotic therapy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are real concerns, and I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to put some systems in place. I think we need to start, especially with prostate screening, we need to have one template that everyone follows, because it seems like everyone is doing their own thing with regard to whether they take a PSA test, whether they do a digital rectal or whatever. I think we need one template that everyone follows. I think that'll be easier to collect data and follow, the steps to see where the gaps are.
That's absolutely correct, and that's where we should be.
Well, you're listening to 103 FM's Men's Healthcare Power. I'm Dennis Webster, your host. Joining me today is Dr. Paul Krups, who is actually a UB graduate and a veterinarian by profession, with a very established practice in Tobago. If you want to be part of the show, you have three options. You can give us a call at 628-4103, or you can log online to 103fm.net, or you can send us a text at 4103. I believe we have a WhatsApp number too, Rishi?
Yeah, we do. We have a WhatsApp number. You can send a WhatsApp, your messages, your questions, whatever your concerns are. You can send that WhatsApp to 299-4103.
So, Rishi, what do you think about all this, that's going on here? Is there really a need for us to put some serious systems in place here?
Well, that's been a concern that's been lurking over Trinidad for so long, where there's always misplaced documents, and where there's always things like this have been going on for forever.
Right.
All right. How does the problem get solved? We don't know.
Right.
We don't know, and it seems as though that no one will ever have that idea or that clue as to how to rectify situations like that.
Right.
But like you say, and what you keep saying on a weekly basis here on the Men's Health Clip Hour, you need guys here. What you have an issue. You need to start. You need to start. not be shy, not be, shunning away from the whole fact that, something is bothering you, something is happening to you. The basic checkups, the basic checkups, you need to get that sorted out. You need to go visit your doctor regularly.
Right.
Have things put in place, have things in order,
Right.
with yourselves medically.
Right.
Get that in order.
Before things get out of hand.
And you deal with your doctor on a one-on-one basis, because I'm sure Dr. Paul is on. He would have patients, and they both will have that relationship. Well, here what we have this issue going on, and they would follow suit like that.
Right.
I mean, for things to happen where reports is going missing and that kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, it's. You call that?
It's really unacceptable.
That's
though.
unacceptable.
Really
Because if
unacceptable.
something is happening to me, if something is wrong with me, and then out of the blue the report is missing and so on, what do I do?
Right.
Do I start all over?
Right.
What do I do? What's going to happen if when I start back so late?
Right.
Maybe it might be too late.
Right. Right.
You know.
right. So a lot of these people.
So
looking
who
at
do we point
repeat-
fingers at? Who do we blame?
Exactly.
How do we do this?
Right.
You know what? So
Who's accountable?
who's accountable? Because no one is accountable. No one knows. No one has the idea.
Right.
And I mean, it just might be too late to start all over again. You
So
know?
my question was, how do we pressure, the administration to get these things in place and these things followed up on? Now, this came out in a report, in June of this year. Like, has anyone been put in place to find these missing reports? Has anyone, given the assignment to find these missing PSA results? Because it really impacts on the whole study. Right? It's incomplete in a way because we have all these missing reports. And as I say, I question the missing PSAs. Like,
And without asking relevant questions, without finding out and getting any sort of accountability,
Right.
it just leaves the whole thing as here what we don't really bother, we're not really bothered, we don't really care.
Right. No, that's 2014, so 2 years gone by, right? So, these people really care. Does anybody care? Like,
And that's it. And then to put the icing on the cake now, a new government has come into power. So
Right.
here what? This government could simply say, well, that's the fault of
That
the
was
last
over them.
government.
Yeah.
That was the fault of the last government,
so they should be sorting it out,
So
and they have a lot on their plate already to sort out
and
right
there
now.
is so much that is just another one of the another one of the shortcomings of the previous government,
Right.
the previous administration here.
Right.
Well, you know what? It sounds as if as though we had a political realm here. We don't want
to get on there. Yes,
Yeah,
But
we
we
don't
want
wanna get
people
on
to be safe, right?
Yeah.
And we want people to get the standard of care that they're entitled to.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them cannot leave the country. It's not like they could leave and go to the United States or Canada or Europe, for care. So we have to make sure that the systems that we have in the island are of the best and the highest standard possible. You know?
But these things can be done privately, right?
These
These reports, these checks, these concerns can be handled privately, right?
Well, the thing is that people go they're in the public system. So they're in the public system. Like, where are the reports in the public system? Where do they keep? Who's responsible for storing them? Now, a lot of the biopsies were done by, they said, trained residents in urology. Well, I mean, the residents speak up to a higher or a senior person. So who is the senior person? Is the senior person responsible for finding the report? Like, what happens now? Like, how do we solve this?
Yeah.
Do these people have a diagnosis or don't they? I mean, do they need to have repeat biopsies to find out whether cancer is there or not?
Exactly. So what's going to happen?
Is
So
somebody
you need
calling them? Is somebody,
Yeah.
writing them a letter saying, you know what, we've been through here. We have 71 missing, and yours happens to be one of the 71. Do you have a copy of the report yourself? Or another thing too is they make slides when they do these tissue biopsies. How long do they keep the slides? Are the slides still available? I mean, you're supposed to keep medical documents for a certain length of period of time. I believe, was it 5 or 7 years or something like that?
7 years.
7 years. So is it the same for slides? The slides that were made from these tissue biopsies?
Well, at the veterinary school, we keep them for at least 3 years.
You keep them for 3 years. So the slides may be still around. So there may be a way of finding out these people actually had a diagnosis or not.
But the truth is that the slides may be labeled with a number, and the number may tie to a file that goes missing. And therefore, without the number, especially since they're now missing 70 files,
71.
how would they know who who that number on that slide, who that number corresponds to.
Exactly. So everything is in a is in a disarray. Everything is
It's chaotic.
it's chaotic. So no one knows anything, and then we'll never know. No one will never know.
So there'll be another one of those unsolved mysteries.
You're right. Well, I want to say two things. I think I was listening all along. I think you mentioned something really important, a really important word that we have to get onto, especially for people who are employed in the government sector. And that word is accountable. We're talking about accountability.
Correct.
The thing is that largely there are very, very small consequences, if any, for people who shirk responsibilities at their jobs. And if there was an equivalent behavior or mentality or culture in private setting, it would not be tolerated. Hands down would not be tolerated. And that is unacceptable, because every one of us employed in Trinidad and Tobago pays health insurance, a local health insurance, in order for us to be taken care of when we go to a government facility.
Right.
And we should expect no less than anywhere where we pay
For services.
our own money for services.
Exactly.
Right? So that was one point I wanted to make about...
Paul, hold that thought for a minute, because I want to get the second point. We just want to take a quick break and come back, and then we'll continue on that second point. You're listening to 103 FM's Men's Healthcare Power. We'll take in a break right now, and we'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to 103 FM's Men's Healthcare Power. I'm your host, Dennis Webster, and joining me today is Dr. Paul Crooks, a UWI graduate and veterinarian, who is actually not just keen on animal health but also human health, and sees, like I do, a need for some healthcare reform in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, Paul, you want to make another point before we went to the commercial break?
Yes, I did.
You can go ahead with that right now.
Okay, so my thing is, this is the 21st century, all right? I think there's absolutely no excuse for losing records.
Right.
Not only should there be hard copies, but there should be soft copies available.
I agree.
At the clinic where I work, I've gotten a system for $100 per year that allows me to save everything to the cloud. Heaven forbid the clinic were to burn to the ground and we were to lose our hard drive. Every record is still saved permanently on someone else's server. And in fact, these companies have to also have backup servers.
Right.
So your records are kept
fairly secure,
guaranteed to be kept safe. And I think that this is a very easy thing for us to implement. This is the 21st century. I think if any medical institution says that they lose records, I think it's inexcusable.
I would agree. I would agree with that, Paul. I would agree with that. I think, electronic medical records has been around for quite some time right now, and I think it's time, we sort of bring that on board. For people who don't understand what we're talking about the biopsy reports, well, these reports are your diagnosis. So you've had a biopsy, they've looked at the tissue sample, and they want to rule out whether there's cancer present or not. So it's important that you get a report stating whether there's cancer or not. So the 71 reports that we actually refer to that when missing are reports on whether people have, cancer or whether they don't have cancer. So it's important. The procedure is not an easy thing to go through. So the least you would expect is that you would get at least a diagnosis, based on having to, gone through that procedure.
Yeah, but there's so many institutes today. I mean, what Dr. Paul's been saying, I know that method would be, in so many other countries, would be adopted by so many other countries.
Absolutely.
I mean, for so many years we've been talking about issues that surrounds missing files, missing documents, that sort of a thing. With so much of the institutes here, the Health Institute here, no different. That should be done. That should have been done so long ago.
Long ago, yes.
We can only hope. We can only hope.
How long are we going to hope? Rishi, my question is, how long are we really going to hope? Because we've been hoping for years now.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We have a vision of health for 2020.
And just take, for example, Dr. Paul. He took the initiative to do something like that.
Right.
And I'm sure there's a lot of folks who doesn't even mind paying a small fee to have that facility available, to have that assurance available to them to ensure that my documents is in place,
Right.
and there's some sort of referral that can be made at any point in time.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I just can't seem to understand in this day and age in 2016 how we still struggle with something like that.
Losing
You know,
pieces of
losing-
paper
yeah,
here.
you know
and
that it is.
it's
It just doesn't, you know.
it boggles the mind, really. I mean,
It does.
you know,
It does. It does.
everything's
it does.
at our fingertip now. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, everything's at
This
our
is
fingertip.
and this is the age of technology, of
It
course,
is, it
and,
is.
and this is something that we struggle with, you know, still, and not only in the health sector, so many others. I mean, we have heard over and over and experienced over and over, you know, in licensing office and you know in other
All the
institutions.
offices, yeah, exactly.
All these
The 3-hour, 4-hour waits,
Yeah,
for paperwork.
stuff
yeah.
like that. Well, let's move on. Let's move on. We've been talking about these documents and the woes that surround the
Right. So it's one of the areas that, as I said, we need to tidy up. One area I think, we need to basically, I think, put in place is, like I say, a standardized system that everyone follows, and it will help with our data gathering. So, as you say, Paul, electronic medical records, I don't know how we get actually this into the system, even for discussion and approval. I mean, I think that's probably a fairly long, tedious process.
And no one really wants to get
take the initiative to get that started.
Yeah, they would hope that a government would implement that. They would hope that the minister would implement that and have that put in place.
Right.
And so you just you're able to just come in and get things. But it takes the initiative of someone.
Right.
To get it
To
done.
get it going.
You know.
To get it going.
I understand the lots of the bureaucratic all the red tape that
All the red tape that
surrounds
has to go through to
surrounds
get it
something
done.
like that
Yeah.
for something like that to put in place.
And it's a very simple system to put in place. That's the whole thing. It's so simple.
Basically, because if Dr. Paul could do it, Dr. Paul, maybe you can help us out.
Real easy thing. It's very easy to do with the internet infrastructure that we have in Trinidad and Tobago.
But one of the questions, Dr. Paul, is why hasn't doctors like yourself and others approached the ministry to get to have something like this implemented? Because I mean, if this sort of revelation could
remember
come.
His patient's a little bit different. Remember, he's
Well,
a vet, so
well,
his patient's a little bit different.
Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
You know what I'm trying to say,
yeah,
because
yeah.
why haven't the doctors because given the circumstance here where the revelation of these documents go missing and that sort of a thing,
Right.
all right, why haven't these doctors came forward and say, well, here what? Let us not, because I don't want a finger pointed at me. My patient's gonna run out and say, hey, what? Hey, you're my doctor.
Yeah.
You're my doctor, and you basically responsible for my information, that kind of a thing.
Right.
And I don't want that finger to be pointed in my way. So here, what? So let us try to get this done. Dr. Paul, why haven't something like this? Why do you think something like this haven't been initiated or taken up
Why
by
aren't
the
local doctors, pushing to get this sort
why
of
the local
system in
doctors
place?
haven't done that as yet?
Okay, so I'll tell you, as a government employee in Tobago, as well, you can see that there are sometimes very basic things that are lacking. And really, you realize, well, there's no way we can think about implementing this thing if this basic thing doesn't work. And I'm trying to be very, very vague here, okay? But basically, this is I think the problem across the board. There are issues with funding, and the question is, when funding limitations arise, where do funds go as a priority? I mean, just recently you've seen we've run out of meds, right?
Yeah.
And I mean,
Chemotherapy drugs.
Yeah, we've run out of life-saving drugs in some cases in the Ministry of Health. And in a situation like that, emergency funds would be directed towards the purchase of those drugs. And the thing is, that money that's used to do that would be held back from something else that could have been done. So the thing is, there's a lot to consider when you look at the costing for those things. And if a politician can argue, or if whoever is responsible for the budget can argue, paper records work, just make paper records work. You can write,
Right.
it's cheaper,
Right.
go that route.
Right.
And and it'll be hard to justify the funding for that. So that's where the problem comes up, honestly. That's where the problem would arise. And so the thing is that even if this cloud-based system cannot be implemented immediately, the paper records have to work. And regardless of the institution you're at, there's no excuse for loss of records, regardless of how the records are kept. There's no excuse in this day and age.
Right.
None at all.
Right. Well, good. Well, thank you for that input, Paul. Like I said, we need changes, and I don't know, who ultimately is going to be responsible for, getting these systems in place. I mean, screening for prostate cancer has come a long way. Most of the systems right now that I use are electronically based. So you basically have, 7 fields that you fill in, ping, ping, ping. They can all be created as desktop items, so, or applications for your phone. So for convenience purposes, you can basically fill this information out in your office or on the go. So there's a lot that's happening right now that's just not happening in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, they're doing it elsewhere. It's just not happening here in Trinidad and Tobago, and it'd be nice to know why.
And we will, and that is a question that we will continue to ask.
Like, why
we will just continue to be asking that and be, just put on the runaround as always.
That's why people are so frustrated.
It is, and this is one of the reasons. This could be a main contributor as to why a lot of men perhaps is reluctant to find out about their health or be concerned about health issues and so on, because there's a lot of men I know of men personally who who says, hey, what, one day I will just get a heart attack and that's the end of that. One day I will get a heart attack, whereas the ideal situation would be, here, what, just go check on your cholesterol, check on this and that kind of thing, and try and prevent issues. Here, what, I would if I hear that I have cancer, that's the end of it. That's the enemy. I would just remain, and that I would just I would go until I drop, like that. Men, because if and then you would hear stories like, if I have to go to the hospital, before I go to the hospital, that's the end of that. I'm not going to any hospital. And this for situations like these. It is going to be a main contributor as to why men may be reluctant, to be concerned about health issues. Do you agree, Dr. Paul?
So I believe that we live, I've traveled across the region, and this is a very Caribbean thing. We're in a society where men are very masculine, okay? That's the truth. And because of that, nobody wants to be seen as a coward. Nobody wants to be seen as weak or ill. So basically nearly every man in the Caribbean is a superhero, okay? So he isn't going to be taken down by Zika or dengue. He's going to roll over that. He isn't going to be taken down by cancer or heart disease,
So
the reality is...
So this issue might just be just another one of the excuses that they can use to preserve the masculinity.
So because they have this macho mentality, they're not going to check. They have this pain in the chest. They're not going to go to the doctor.
Let's put a pin there, right there, doctor, because we have somebody on WhatsApp here asking this question right now. He says, ask the doctor if heart pains are normal.
Heart pains are normal.
Okay, so I can say that heart pains are not normal. You should never be aware that your heart is there. However, when people say heart pain, they may not actually mean heart pain.
It could be indigestion sometimes too, right?
Well,
right.
Well, it could mean pains in the region.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's very important. You could go to the gym and just finish the workout and have chest pains, but it's muscle pains. So it's very important that WhatsApp messenger knows that pain in the region is not necessarily heart pain. Exactly. Pain associated with heart attacks is a deferred pain, and you tend to get the pain in the arm, not in the region of the chest. So pain in the chest is always something serious. Somebody should examine it, but it could be nothing at all.
But can we take the macho way out and say, here what, let me see how long this pain could last. Can we do something like that too?
Sure. I mean, at your own risk. At your own risk.
We have options.
We can say, well, I'm having this pain, let me see. Let me see if by morning it will go away, boy. Let me drink some hot tea or something, and maybe it can be gas, and let me see what can happen. We have a call in the line actually. Let's
caller, welcome to 103 FM's Men's Health Club Hour. Do you have a question for us?
Let's take this call. All right, we lost this one.
Hello?
This one. Let's try it again on the other line here, line 4. All right, line 5 actually. Hello. All right. What am I doing here, boy? Am I doing something wrong? I'm actually blocking the lines. Anyway, let's continue with our conversation before we go to the lines. All right. I'll try to get back that call. Caller, if you're still interested, can you call us back? 628-4103. All right. Yeah.
Yes, Paul. I remember the general rule was for cardiac pain was if you could actually point to where the pain is, that it probably wasn't cardiac. Because cardiac pain is usually a generalized pressure that you feel.
Correct.
And pain in the chest could be many things. Heart could be one, but it could also be muscular. But it's always worth investigating further if you find it's getting worse and causing you, especially shortness of breath and things like that. Is that correct, Paul?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're dealing with a heart disease situation,
mm-hmm.
so not necessarily a chronic, a sudden heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dealing with a heart disease situation, you tend to get clinical signs of difficulty breathing, you tend to have maybe coughing and so on. At night in particular, when you're laying down, you may have more problems taking breaths.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the kind of things, maybe it's more difficult to exercise, those are the kind of things that indicate to you might have a heart disease. Mm-hmm. And even though we're making all the jokes about macho men, about all the superheroes we have across the region, the truth is that if you want to be the real superhero, if you want to have that long life, to take care of your family, to be there for your friends, to go liming, mm-hmm. you better make sure that you're in good health.
Get checked.
If you have any indication at all
mm-hmm.
that something may be wrong, again, we have to go with the route of check your trusted physician.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Boy, the macho-ness, doctor, it is what we cannot escape from, boy. Because as usual, we would have this pain and we would have this feeling of uncomfort, and we would just say, here what? Let me drink some tea. Let me drink some. Let me just.
Let
me just take a small lie down now. Let me just get a quick lie down, and maybe by morning, that's sort of a thing. But the harsh reality comes into play when by morning you get up, and that pain isn't going away, boy. That's the harsh reality, boy.
It's a huge worry, yeah. But it's best, as I say, it's best to get checked to rule out, that it's something simple, and a lot of times, it's muscular and it could be easily resolved. So when in doubt, get checked.
For sure. Here, what we'll do we'll take a quick commercial break here right now, and once again remind listeners that you can also send your messages, your concerns to 2994103. Send that quick WhatsApp to us. Doctor is on the line. He is here with us. He's Skyping actually, and he will only be too happy to maybe give some advice. Nurse Dennis Webster is also here. He's also qualified. He has a lot of information. He can also give you some answers that you just may be looking for. And you can feel free to call us up at 628-4103. Quick message, and then we come back with some more. Well, of course, we're back here again, and bringing us to 22 minutes before the 10 o'clock mark already. Time is flying inside of the Men's Health Clip Hour this evening. Nurse Dennis Webster with us, and of course, Dr. Paul Crooks, all the way Skyping from Tobago right now. Tobago?
Yes.
How's the weather in Tobago today, this evening?
It was pretty good this evening. It was a bit rainy this morning, but that helped. It was very hot otherwise, so... I was happy for the rain. Nice.
One of the questions that a lot of people also ask. I just got a WhatsApp here on my personal phone here that do I get regular checkups? Well, to be honest, I've never gotten a checkup. But Doc, my question to you is what are the indicators? What are the indicators of maybe an unhealthy person? Because you may not have the the pains, you may not have the discomforts, but what are the indicators of the so-called unhealthy person walking around? Maybe is there a physical something physical that you can just look at a guy and say something wrong with that man, something like that?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Each person is an individual, so what's normal for one person is not necessarily normal for another. That said, each person, like I always tell my clients this, when they bring in a dog or a cat, sometimes I go to a farm, the owner is supposed to be most aware of what is normal for his dog. I can't say how much a dog should eat every day. I can't say how the animal should normally behave. In the same way, a person should know himself better than anyone else. And so you should know, listen, I've been sleeping regularly for the past 3 years and now I'm having difficulty sleeping. What is happening? And you first of all, you identify that there is something that has changed from normal. So to each person, normal is different, right? There are chronic lifestyle diseases that we've been seeing way too much of in Trinidad and Tobago. I think part of the reason is that we have access to lots of cheap fast food. We have a lot of obesity and we have a lot of diabetes, type 2 diabetes in particular. So we know that there are these chronic health issues that are related to lifestyle. Other than that, it may be difficult to say. I would say as you're getting older, chronic joint pain and so on, definitely a problem. If the tongue or the when you pull back your eyelid, the color in there, if it's becoming less pink, if it's going towards very pale colors or towards white, then you are definitely looking at an anemic patient. So that means you're either losing blood or you're not producing enough red blood cells, and that is something that should be the underlying cause of that should be found out rather quickly, just in case of anything. If the color is changing of your gums, if it's changing from red to yellow, that's an issue. If there's difficulty urinating, any difficulty urinating at all, even if it's just a pain or discomfort associated with urination, that's a problem.
Yeah, because as you're getting older, your prostate is, in men, we can't help it. The prostate is going to grow.
That's correct.
You can't slow that down. It's going to grow. Like the issue is that some men are going to have problems with it, and some men are not going to have problems. But, enlarged prostate causes men a lot of difficulty, and it impacts heavily also in the workplace. Having issues with having to go to the bathroom a lot, things like that. I mean, if you know how you are normally, it'll be easy for you usually to detect if something's a little bit off. And if you're feeling in your gut that something's not right, then chances are it's not right, and you should actually go and get it checked.
Exactly right.
For men, watching their weight. I mean, and we have guidelines now how to maintain a proper body weight. Checking things like body mass index, checking waist circumference and things like that. So there are ways to maintain a good body weight. Another thing too is getting regular exercise. But you should also always check with your doctor before you start any exercise program, because some fellas have not been exercising for years and years and years, and all of a sudden they want to go and do something really, really.
The waist is the waist.
Well,
the waist is the waist, and it doesn't include the belly.
Oh no! Because some
the
belly leans over. The belly leans.
Yeah, because that's it. Sometimes the belly just laps over, and in taking that circumference of the waist, it tends to maybe.
The belly sometimes absorbs the waist.
The belly is in the circumference.
So you want to get below that belly in the waist section.
So
it's really like.
Also the waist. Okay.
It's below there, so you're not really a belly, but just below your umbilical.
Do we be concerned with the belly? Should we be concerned?
Well, yeah, I mean, big bellies, because of fat. There are different types of fat. One of the fats that we want to be concerned about is what we call visceral fat. That's fat that actually covers your organs. So you don't want to have a lot of visceral fat because it affects, your blood flow, to your organs. So that's one of the things you want to watch. So when you see a big belly, you have to be concerned because, you're not sure, whether there's a lot of visceral fat actually happening already. And it can affect your organs negatively. So, you want to try and maintain a good, body weight and good body mass index. You want to watch diet, and notice we do a lot of is we eat a lot of food late at night, usually fried foods, chicken sandwiches late at night. I think it's not a good habit, and if you can change that and stop that, we probably see some health benefits from that.
Well, that's a really great point that Dr. Paul had brought up just now about checking the eyes. It's the first time I've heard that pull back the eyelid, that sort of a thing. Checking, you know, the belly is a concern. The belly is a concern.
Absolutely.
And
urination is a concern.
You know, examine the urine. Right. Examine the urine.
Look at the urine.
I've even heard people say examine the stool also.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes you can see frank blood in there. Now, it may not necessarily be cancerous. You know, sometimes people have hemorrhoids. You know, when your hemorrhoids act up, you can see some blood in your stool, but you want to be looking at that to see whether the amount is increasing, what the color is, especially if it's frank blood. So things like that.
But that would happen. That blood.
You could have blood from
in relation to the hemorrhoids.
Yes.
Based on the hemorrhoids, I mean,
you could have some blood
in order to get blood in that. And you know it's related to hemorrhoids. You would know, well, here what I had to force to go, right. And I would have felt some discomfort while I was.
And you
going.
have a history of hemorrhoids.
And I have a history of hemorrhoids. Right. So you know what? Okay, that's hemorrhoids. But what about the fact that here what I didn't have any issues at all. I didn't have any problems. I just you know, man, I was free. And when I look back there, it was.
So yes, so you know, you have to be thinking You have to be thinking maybe possible colon cancer. So that's why we encourage people starting at age 50 to go for colonoscopies to rule out colon cancer. It's one of the curable cancers if you can catch it early.
But that's at 50?
Starting at 50 is what the recommendation is, that you go for colon cancer screening. So which is a colonoscopy, which is they put a scope up and they look around. You're basically slightly sedated, so you're kind of awake during the procedure. And they will see if there's a problem, if there are polyps or anything precancerous.
Well, we got a call on the line. Let's take this call. Let's find out what's up, what's on the minds of this caller here who's calling us here on line 5.
Yes, caller.
All right. The line is blinking. It is blinking. It is showing me that a caller is on the line, and I'm still seeing the caller on the line, but I'm just not linking up here on the telephone. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that we're Skyping. Right. All right, but caller, try back again. Try us back one more time again. Let's see, and maybe if we'll tell you to abandon that method and go to WhatsApp. All right. Remember, you can also send the WhatsApp message. If you're not getting through on the telephone, maybe you can send that message on 2994103. All right, the WhatsApp message board here this evening. So we're talking about men's issues. We have the doctor with us, despite the fact that the doctor is the doctor of the animals.
Yeah.
All right, but
he has good insight.
He has the knowledge. He has the knowledge. Doc, you want to say something else?
So I just wanted to make the point, when you all were talking about blood in the stool, this is where it really becomes important that you know what's normal for you. Okay, blood in the stool is never normal. It's indicative of trauma of some type. So even if it's the hemorrhoids, you have these things that are likely to bleed, at least you know that what it is and why that's happening. You also have an idea of what is the normal level of blood you might see from something like that. Again, you know that if you have hemorrhoids and so you've had that diagnosed, that when you see that blood, that's normal. Anybody else who's never had a diagnosis like that, if you see blood in the stool, you know that that's not normal for you, definitely you should get it checked out. If there's a change in the color of the stool, get it checked out.
Especially the black tarry stools, you know, the stools that are very dark black and tarry looking. That's usually that, you know, there's hidden blood in there, old blood in the stool. So that's one of the things you want to, you know, to keep an eye on. Like, you know, what do your stools look like? I mean, we have to pay attention to things like this. What does the urine look like? Is it normal? Because urine is normally clear, light yellow, without a foul odor. So you want to be paying attention to things like that. Is the urine foul? You know, is it cloudy looking? Is there any blood in the urine? You know, these are things you want to, you know, pay attention for. And it's, you know, educating ourselves helps us actually detect these things sooner.
So blood of any kind, of any sorts, despite in what method it got there, whether by
well, sometimes blood in the stool could be a normal find. For example, if you had a prostate biopsy, right? Sometimes you'll see some blood in your stool. You know, it's expected you see some blood in your stool, and blood in your urine, also blood in your semen. So sometimes, you know, we expect to see some blood based on some sort of procedure.
Besides blood, is there any other concerns about the stool?
Well, I mean, the consistency of the stool also. I mean, are you having, because some people get into difficulty if they're dealing with chronic constipation. You
can also have mucoid in this mucoid-looking stool.
Right, a lot of mucus in there.
There's some inflammation. Sometimes if you have problems with digestion. Stool may also, so sometimes
a lot of diarrhea.
Yeah.
Crohn's disease, disease
That's
of
right.
the bowel.
So stool can indicate quite a bit. Of course, microscopically, if you were to get worms from eating some undercooked meat, you could also detect the worms in the stool, which would not necessarily be visible by the naked eye. They would detect the eggs in the stool, and that's something that's still done. So yeah, the stool can give you a lot of information.
So you have to pay attention to your body. You have to know what's what's normal for you, because if you know what's normal for you, then you can easily detect when something's a little bit off.
Yeah.
So you need to know your body, and you got to pay attention to your body. You got to give it the attention. So they need, sometimes if it tells you need rest, you need to rest. If something is injured and needs time to heal, you have to give it that time.
I'm going to try this phone one more time. I'm seeing it ringing here again. I'm going to try it one more time. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening, caller. Hello, caller, you on the line?
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to 103 FM's Men's Healthcare Power. You have a question?
Hi, good night.
Good night.
I was listening to a conversation a while ago. I was driving, so I thought I'll call you when I get home. When your panel was talking about electronic storage of medical records.
Right.
And it is very interesting to know that way back in 2000, recommendations were made to have those records electronically stored.
16 years
and no
ago.
one had the wherewithal to do it. So we didn't have the desire to do it because each ministry wanted to handle its own affairs. And as a consequence of that, the money was badly spent and not pooled together to provide the services that we should have in the public service.
It's unfortunate, very unfortunate.
But unfortunate that it continues to be badly handled up to this day. So we don't.
You see, each ministry wants to have its own budget for information technology, but information technology spans across the entire public service.
Absolutely.
There are services that would, impact on several ministries and not a single ministry.
Absolutely.
And no one, wishes to do that. If that is done, then you're going to get a better spend on the money that you have available and get the services that you require.
Do you have any idea how we can make this happen, sir?
Well, government had dismantled a department that had control over information technology, National Information System Center, which sort of regulated information technology appliances and software into the public service. And since that is dismantled, each ministry is doing its own thing, which should not be.
It just seems so disjointed.
Get together and put and pool its resources, both human resources, human IT resources, and its financial resources together, and let them identify projects which are critical.
Right.
And spend the money there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks
so much for your input.
Thank you for your input, sir.
Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you.
You have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, thank you so much for that caller. Man has
2000, that's 16 years now. 16 years.
And as far as we know, and as far as we can tell, it's just going to happen.
It'll be another 16 again before we have this conversation again. So that's what I mean. Like, it gets frustrated.
It does.
It really gets frustrating to face this over and over and over. So let's get these changes made. And I don't know. We need to call to get these things in place. But I mean, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And we need to address it.
This is what we're gonna do. We have just about 7 minutes, under 7 minutes to go. I'll take a quick break here, and when we come back, we get ready to wrap up. All right, keep it locked in. This is 103 FM, the Men's Health Clip Hour. Yep, just about 6 minutes to go. A great evening it was. A lot of information. The revelation about the missing files and so on. Of course, thank you to that caller who just called. Off the air, we were talking about here. What is this? Is this an issue that's gonna persist? How can it be solved? What can we do to solve it?
How can we bring about this change? Because it's absolutely frustrating. I mean, the changes that are required are not difficult to make, but someone has to get that ball rolling.
Dr. Paul, you think that do you envisage something do you see in the future, maybe in the near future, hopefully not in the near future, but do you see in the future at all that the situation changing with documents and its storage and that sort of a thing?
Oh boy.
You want to take a big breath before?
To be honest with you, I'm not optimistic about that at all. I'm not optimistic about the change anytime soon.
Well, off the air we were talking. Off the air we were talking quickly, and Dennis Webster said to me, Rishi, well, we have to start somewhere. We have to do something. But like we said, here what? Government go, government come. Whilst you're on the campaign trail, here what? You have all the answers for everything. And suddenly, when you get there, you have no answers for anything.
And nothing's moving.
And nothing is moving, and nothing will continue to happen. And we all gets on the bandwagon when it's time to vote for me and vote for you and vote for she. And that is the thing. We all get in the bandwagon, and sadly, it continues to happen.
It's a bad thing that just
government go,
perpetuates
government come. I mean, when?
What are we to do now? What are we
to do?
Like, what's your next step?
Doctors here what? All doctors get together. Yes, we want this done and we should have this done. But here what? We have no finance. Here what? We have no this, we have no that. And it's always a downer. You know what? So, I mean, what are we to do?
It's frustrating.
What are we
It's
to do?
absolutely
It is,
frustrating.
it is
Frustrating.
It is. It's absolutely frustrating.
And I look at it every day. I said, these simple things.
And you can even hear the frustration in Dr. Paul's voice just now while asking him the simple question.
Absolutely.
The man started off with a sigh. The man started with a sigh. Oh,
Because you know what it's like in this country, right? And,
Yeah.
and it's going to be double that to make a change.
And this is the problem, where you have, even if they were doing paper records, it should be very simple to implement. That one person records, this is where they're stored in alphabetical order. If the file goes to the lab, when copies are made, etc., so that everybody knows this is how the things go. There are simple things that are missing that could very easily be remedied at every level. There are protocols that are not followed. And whether or not there are protocols that are in place and not followed, or whether or not protocols are to be developed, it just means that something is happening with the protocols. And the truth is, even if there were to be digital record keeping and electronic or cloud-based storage, you still require that people do their jobs. And this is the issue that it really may boil down to, is that we have a culture, honestly, in Trinidad and Tobago, of people doing the least they can to get by. You know, there's very little proactivity.
That is so true.
It's
Just
amazing,
point an example, case in point here at the licensing office. I transferred my vehicle. This is a personal experience. I transferred a vehicle and I sold that vehicle 5 years after I got the chit in my hand. The vehicle is on my name. And 5 years after to go to transfer that vehicle is not on my name. That vehicle is on the previous owner's name. And I have this shit in my hand saying I am the owner of this vehicle. You know, this is all these things that happens and continues to happen. And you know what? There's no one you can go to. There's no one you can ask the question. There's no one who can be held accountable to say, here what? Yes, this is the thing. And Doc, I can understand the frustration and you can understand our frustration, but it continues to happen. And we see
nothing moving to change it.
No change that is in the near future. What can we do? What can we do? You know, what can we do?
We're like stuck between a rock and a hard place, really, right now.
And I think in years to come, culture will change. I think we need to have a society where we get more discipline, where people are held accountable, where there are consequences for action and for inaction. And I think all of these things have to come into place before we can say, because we can put all these systems in place and people just don't use them, you know.
Doc, we have just about a minute again to go. You want to get some closing remarks?
Okay, so for me, if anything is different today than it was yesterday in your life, and you think that there's something that is making you ill, you probably are correct. You may not be diagnosed, but you probably are correct, and it's worth getting it checked out. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here this evening with us, Dr. Paul Crooks, all the way in Tobago. All right, have a pleasant evening to you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for coming.
All right. Nurse Webster, final words from you, a few seconds to go.
I'd like to remind people that they shouldn't be afraid to get a second opinion, especially in a case of serious illness. And don't be afraid to find a new doctor if you don't feel that you're receiving proper medical care. Your health is way too important to place in the hands of a provider who hasn't earned your confidence, isn't addressing your questions or concerns, and in your opinion not giving you your condition adequate time and attention. You've been listening to The First, The Finest. A pleasant good night to everyone.